Welcome everyone to Act to Transform Your Community, Liberation Work and You. I'm personally very excited about this panel. If you have any questions during the panel, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box right here on Hopin. If at any time you feel like you're in crisis, please email teenscene@padv.org and we can connect you with a Care Bear who can help you. So I'm very excited to welcome Nzinga Thompson-Hall from SisterLove. And once we have these slides here, I'm going to let her take it away. So let's see. I think I have something here. So let me get this pulled up. And welcome, Nzinga.
Thanks so much for having me. This is really exciting. Thank you so much.
All right. I am downloading them now. Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. The joys of using a new platform.
I actually really like this. I didn't know about this until this conference, so this is really, really cool.
There's definitely a learning curve, a little different from Zoom, but it's amazing that we can connect so many people in so many different ways. All right, so I have your slides up. Let me get my screen share going.
Okay.
And here we are. Let me know if you can see my screen.
I can.
All right, excellent. And full disclosure, I can't see anybody's chats in this way. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. I'm going to turn off my video and I'll make this full screen and take it away.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you see it now?
I can. It's not full screen, but I mean, that's fine. Okay. I'm fine with that. Okay, cool. We'll get right into the agenda then. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Nzinga. I use she, her pronouns. I am the manager of youth programs at SisterLove. We're an organization located in the United States, specifically in Atlanta, Georgia, as well as Johannesburg, South Africa. So today I'm going to be talking to you about so many exciting things, including reproductive justice, gender justice, as well as transformative justice. So I'm excited to talk to everyone, meet anyone. I wasn't really sure about this format, if I could physically see you. It looks like that's not the case. So I do have some questions for you. So go on ahead and just participate in the chat and we can just move, right along. So our agenda today will be just a brief introduction, like introducing ourselves. I'm going to talk about the organization that I work for, SisterLove. I'm going to be defining RJ, GJ, TJ. We'll do a Q&A at the end, and then we'll just do a closing. So that's our agenda for today. So excellent. We're just going to do a round robin, including name, pronouns, city, state. My question for everyone is, what is your ideal vacation spot and what are you hoping to learn? So I will model. My name is Nzinga. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I now live in Atlanta, Georgia. I think my ideal vacation spots, it's tied between the Seychelles and Maldives. Definitely have been trying to see and explore those areas for a while now. So I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. Everyone can just introduce themselves in the chat and then we'll move right along.
Closure, there is a bit of delay. So what we're saying now, folks will hear in about like 30 seconds. So anticipate that in the chats as well.
Nice, Marilyn. Cool. Maybe a couple more seconds and we might just like roll along, folks. Still feel free to chat, but I know we have to end in about 25 minutes. So I'll probably just keep it rolling along, even though there is a little bit of a delay because I want to get to our content. So I'm just going to go ahead and say we can do the next slide. But then everyone who sees this video, feel free to share where you're from, all of that sort of jazz. Okay, so who are we as an organization? So SisterLove is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. We have offices in South Africa as well as in Atlanta. And our mission is to eradicate the impact of HIV and sexual and reproductive oppression upon all women, their families, and communities, locally and internationally. We were established in 1989 as the first organization in the United States South to explicitly focus on the needs of Black women living with HIV and other communities disproportionately impacted. Sorry, I have a little bit of trouble reading that. Okay, that's much better. Okay. Established in 1989, we were the first organization in the South to explicitly focus on the needs of Black women and other communities disproportionately impacted and least recognized in direct services, research, and advocacy in the HIV epidemic. And as a reproductive justice organization, we see the conditions of liberation that will exist when all people have the power and resources necessary to make their own decisions about their gender, bodies, sexuality, relationships, families, and communities, to create and choose their families and to reproduce their communities as a whole, all with dignity, self-determination, and genuine support. All right, next slide. So I sort of repeated that, but I just wanted to repeat it one more time. So when we talk about reproductive justice, we want to make sure that we are talking about everybody. Reproductive justice talks about ensuring that people have what they need, right? So the resources that they need to be equipped with to live their fullest lives. It's important that we talk about self-determination and making those decisions, right? Having that agency to make the decisions that work for them. And just make that choice, you know. I want to live in a community where I feel safe to create a family on my own terms. So in the corner there, in the right corner, you will see our location. That's called the Mother House. It's a beautiful house located in West End. We have, if it weren't for COVID, we would have, so many events there, regularly and all that sort of jazz. But with COVID, we are, temporarily shut down, but we offer HIV and STI testing, STI education and support groups, and so many other mechanisms for support for our communities. So if you have any questions about us, please visit us at www.sisterlove.org. Next slide, please. So we're going to click on that link. Hopefully it works. Hopefully this will lead you into another tab. Okay, crossing my fingers.
Disclosure, if this video has sound, it may not come out the best through this platform. I'm going to see if it will let me here. Thank you all for your patience. All right. I don't think it's going to let me click it. All right. Copy. All right. I'm going to try to share an additional screen. Give me one moment, folks.
Sure.
And if you can't hear the video, please let us know in the chat. Again, I think we've had some problems with the YouTube videos in the past. So let's give it a shot. I'm going to reshare my slides.
A lot of people talk about it.
Hang on.
Many don't know what it really means. Here's the basic idea. Coined by 12 Black women in June of 1994, the term is the combination of two phrases.
Okay. Well, it was playing in the background. Did y'all hear that at all?
Yeah, at least there's sound.
Okay. All right. Give me one sec. And here. Can we see it?
Yeah.
Thank you all for bearing with me. I have a million windows up right now. All right. Let me know if you can hear this.
Yeah. Thanks.
The lives and experiences of Black women in the United States who have been denied a full range of services and protections. Black women have multiple identities like age, ability, sexual orientation, immigration status, religion, and nationality, just to name a few. Consider the fact that Black women experience some of the highest rates of poverty and only make 63 cents for every dollar a white man makes. Nearly 20% of Black women have no health insurance and die 4 times as often as white women from pregnancy-related causes, regardless of income or educational status. The issue at play here is intersectionality, a term coined by legal scholar KIMBERLE CRENSHAW which refers to how multiple systems of oppression work together. Reproductive justice is how we take on all the systems that harm us. Reproductive justice is the human right that can only be achieved when all women and girls have the complete economic, social, and political power and resources to make healthy decisions about our bodies, our families, and our communities in all areas of our lives. Reproductive justice centers the leadership and lived experiences of the most vulnerable, including but not limited to Black women, women of color, LGBTQ people, and youth. So there you have it. Reproductive justice has given thousands of women a framework to change policy, improve services, collaborate with other social justice movements towards our collective liberation. For more information, contact In Our Own Voice at www.blackrj.org. Thanks for watching and welcome to the movement.
Excellent. So that was just a little bit of a breakdown of reproductive justice. That's one of the videos that I enjoy personally using to explain RJ. Okay. And then whenever you get a chance, yep, we can go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, so how do we incorporate reproductive justice in our daily lives? There we go. So that could look like culturally competent healthcare. That could look like sexual education in our public health, in our public school systems. That could look like paid time off and caregiver leave when we think about our employership, doula and lactation consultant referrals after patients give birth. We can list numerous examples, but essentially it is about choice, right? It's this idea that when I seek the resources that I need, these resources are made essentially in a precision way that fit my needs. So I'm gonna give it a couple of seconds. Does anyone want to share how we can incorporate reproductive justice in our daily lives? How about, for example, having like self-care days, right? That would be an example of really taking the time to understand that I need a break, that I need a pause to reassess and redetermine the things I need. Taking social media breaks, taking naps, right? All of these versions of self-care are directly linked to reproductive justice and how we best show up. Having policies, like I said, for like caregiver leave. So, sick leave when, a child is sick and I have an employer that understands that I need to be at home. That's reproductive justice, right? When I am breastfeeding and I need to breastfeed at work, that I will have a solemn, quiet space to either pump for my child or breastfeed for my child. So those are some other examples. I'm gonna keep it moving, but if anyone comes up with any more, and the things that you're saying, or you're thinking about is probably reproductive justice. It doesn't have to be like, always just like gathering and going to, political rallies. That is part of it. But part of it is understanding that we need to have certain things in place for our daily lives to make our lives better, especially as marginalized folks, Black people, queer people, poor people, disabled people, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll let you all think about that a little bit more, and we're going to continue on. All right, so what is gender justice? First, let's discuss gender. Next slide, please. So gender refers to the socially constructed roles, behaviors, expressions, and identities of all diverse people. It influences how people perceive themselves and each other, how they act and interact, and the distribution of power and resources in society. Gender identity is not confined to a binary, girl, woman, boy, man, nor is it static. It exists along a continuum and can change over time. There's considerable diversity in how individuals and groups understand, experience, and express gender through the roles they take on, the expectations placed on them, the relations with others, and the complex ways that gender is institutionalized in society. Next slide, please. So we're gonna watch this video first. Hopefully it works, but then I'm gonna open it up and for a round robin to see how others define gender. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for yourselves. It could just be an overall definition. And we can just ask, what does gender mean to you?
I get that video up in 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
If humanity Monday.com is a platform to track everything your team is working on.
Sorry for the ads.
It's okay.
HR, creative productions. I love Monday.com because it's totally customizable, and that's something I couldn't find in any other management tool.
Can we skip it?
Let's see here.
Owners, statuses, deadlines, which means more time.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool.
I've learned that the most important questions don't have answers, they just have more questions in response. And one of the most fundamental questions that I've tried to run into in my life is, who am I? I began to realize I was not a boy. I think it took more time to figure out that just because I wasn't a boy meant I didn't have to be a girl. My name is Alok. I'm a writer and performance artist. I'm trying to challenge a world that isolates us from one another and prevents us from talking about the things that are most important to us in public. When I was a little kid, I lived life on my own terms. I utterly hated boys' clothes and the expectations that were assigned to me as someone supposed to being a boy. I was taught that so many parts of myself were incompatible, that I wasn't allowed to be free, and that was called masculinity. I try to flip the script in that question and say, when did my joy become too much for the society? When did my creativity have to be policed into the binary? I'm actually fighting for a world where all people are able to self-determine their gender. What I want to challenge the gender binary, not man and woman. I want man and woman to be two of millions. I want man and woman to be able to exist without having to be in competition. I want people to feel that.
Okay, I'm gonna say we can end this video because I'm having troubles hearing a little bit. It's just a little bit staticky, but I wanted to show that video because I'm a huge fan of Alok Venom Vade. And so when we talk about gender, I wanted to have this discussion on, on having people understand that gender is not a defined thing. However, in our society, we often attribute it to power, success, and this affects people across, the world in terms of roles where they feel like they have to fit in. But it's really important when we think about, folks who are in public health, folks who are in social justice movements. It's really critical and important that we do not apply these binary terms to people, and we have to think of gender as expansion. So when we think of gender justice, this means that we are redistributing power, redistributing opportunities to people who may not always be in power, right? It's not just, women need to be equal to men. It's all people across the continuum need to have the resources they need, the access to education, to health, et cetera, right? It is this idea that we are taking a binary which was taught, which was enforced, and we can talk about, white supremacist ideals, all that sort of thing, right? But this is this binary, the system that was forced upon people, forcing people to have to mold to it, even though that's not something that they need, that's not something that they internally feel. So I really like that definition, that it is a systemic redistribution of power. Okay, next slide, I believe. Yes, okay, so I wanted to, the one before. Slide 12, thank you. So I wanted to highlight that gender is a spectrum, and I'm so sorry that this picture is a little bit harder to see, but as you can see, gender is along a spectrum. Some people identify as cisgender, transgender, genderqueer, gender fluid, third gender. It is a spectrum, it is not static. People can come in and out, right? It's not this defined thing. And I want this conversation to always be about expansion, always, evolving, really taking our imaginations to a place where we are not defined by ideals that have never fit us. So that's something that I want ultimately people to get out of this conversation, is that we have to imagine more, especially in the times that we live in now. We have to understand that what we have been given, there is more than this. We do not have to live by the terms that people have enforced on us. So I just wanted to give that video an example. A look. They are a wonderful poet, and I hope you can find them and follow them on Instagram. I absolutely am a huge fan of them. Okay, so we're going to transition to our next slide. Okay, so next we're going to talk about transformative justice. So transformative justice is a political framework and approach for responding to violence, harm, and abuse. At its most basic, it seeks to respond to violence without creating more violence and/or engaging in harm reduction to lessen the violence. TJ can be thought of as a way of making things right, getting in right relation, or creating justice together. Transformative justice responses and interventions do not rely on the state. So this is really, really important. They do not rely on legal precedents, on, bills, all these sort of things. It is completely taken away from the legal system. So you'll see here, police, prisons, criminal legal system, ICE, foster care, et cetera, et cetera. Do not reinforce or perpetuate violence such as oppressive norms or vigilantism. And most importantly, actively cultivate the things we know prevent violence, such as healing, accountability, resilience, and safety for all involved. Next slide, please. So some things to remember. Transformative justice is a way of addressing an individual act of harm that relies on community members instead of the police, the law, or the government. It is a response to the racism and gender-based oppression that shape life for many people of color. So though models differ, all reject the involvement of the criminal justice system, choosing instead to rely on community support networks and mediators. So key factors are leading activists to transformative justice, including awareness around mass incarceration, unfair sentencing practices, racially motivated over-policing, and failure of American politicians to address sexual violence in a substantive way. Those in the transformative justice movement are working toward an approach that does not depend on the unequal reach of the law for accountability. So let's break some things down. In our system, in the United States, when we think of punishment, especially when we think of, criminal punishment, what often happens? People have to go to court. People often are given very few opportunities for remediation, for a process that allows them to understand if said harm was wrong, right? So transformative justice is this process that say, hey, in our criminal justice system, we do not have we have an injustice system. In the United States, we do not have a justice system. This is this form of saying, hey, we know that the carceral state has no benefit to people, especially people of marginalized identities. Let's understand how people can come together to understand what harms have been done in a way that takes the state out. So I hope people understand that. Sometimes this can look like healing circles. Sometimes that could look like, very like heartfelt apologies. Sometimes this looks like community service, right? It is up to the people in, the situations where harm has happened to come up with a way that works best for them. Both people have to be open to a transformative justice process, right? But it is completely taking the carceral state out of punitive measures. So I just wanted to highlight that and have people understand that. And I think that's extremely beautiful because we know that the carceral state is killing Black folk, killing LGBTQ folk, killing people of marginalized identities. And we know that it just simply does not work. All right, so I have our final video. I'm praying that it will work. But if it does not, we're just gonna have to, we'll just improv and just have an overall discussion, but this is a great video with some of the thought leaders in TJ right now. Hopefully it works.
Yes, everybody drop comments in the chat if you can hear it okay. I'm going to get this going and try to share my screen here. All right, give me 1 second. Nazinga, this is phenomenal content. Thank you so much.
I'm trying to explain.
Oh, happy to share.
All right, here we go.
I usually back away from, I don't go straight at, this is transformative justice. I usually actually go back to punitive justice. I start out with like, what we're used to and what we've been socialized into is punitive justice. And then I ask people, if I'm in a room full of people, even a room full of friends, I'll be like, how many of you grew up in an experience where you were punished when harm happened? And I give examples. You were expelled, you were put in detention, you were suspension, put on timeout. But the main move is you're removed from community in some way because you've done harm. And people are like, well, yeah, everyone either has that experience or you're part of spaces where you saw that experience. And then I'm like, what age we grow that up so that then you go into prison or the death penalty or you get canceled from your community, right? It's the same process. So we live in that's what we're swimming in. And then I talk about restorative justice as a steps in the right direction, right? Like harm has happened. How do we restore ourselves back to that relationship that existed before the harm happened? So like someone stole your purse, you get an apology, they do some community service. Hopefully we return to like where we were. But for me, I always say that doesn't go far enough because if the original conditions were unjust, then returning to those original conditions is not actually justice, right? You're just going to have someone who's like, great, now I returned everything to you. I still don't have anything and I'm still hungry and I still need something. I'm like, so we need to go further. So to me, transformative justice, the first aspect of it is that it goes all the way down to the root system of the harm. It says, how do we change, heal, transform, pull this up? What do we need to do at the root system so that this harm is no longer possible? What we're trying to do is stop this harm from ever being possible again. And then how do we understand that the state?
All right, it did, the sound did cut out. I don't know if you want to rewind it a little bit and see if it'll come back. If not a big deal. I think people. Okay, it came back.
Transformative justice to just anybody that I meet randomly is that it's a way of responding to violence and harm without creating more violence and harm. That's their approach. What would it look like to respond to harm in a way?
Hey, I just wanted to check in. I've been getting some comments that we're getting some feedback. How does it sound to everybody?
It cut out for a few seconds, but it came back.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
That doesn't create more trauma, more pain, more harm. And then after that, I would also say the way that I talk about it is that it is a way to respond to violence within our own communities, which feels really important. So it's not this kind of missionary thing, in a way that doesn't rely on violence and state and oppressive systems. So things like police, prisons, the criminal legal system, the court system, ICE, the foster care system, And it also doesn't rely on normalized violence and systemic violence, like reinforcing harmful gender norms or vigilantism, but that it also, most importantly, helps to create and cultivate the very things that we know help to prevent violence. So things like resilience, safety, healing, connection, all of those things.
The way that I usually describe transformative justice is addressing harm, but also understanding why that harm happened and addressing the underlying dynamics that created conditions for this harm to happen in the first place. And so it's not just addressing the harm between two or more people, but addressing the conditions of the community that allowed for that to be normal.
Transformative justice asks us not only about accountability for the individual for the harm that's been caused, but to think more largely about how all of us may have contributed or are contributing or part of these systems that create the harm that we're trying to address.
It distributes the culpability.
Okay. And we can end the
Which
video
isn't to say
right
again
there.
that it's even, but everyone holds some amount. Everyone holds some amount. You know, what environment enabled the silencing to go on, such that this pattern was able to continue until a crisis? You know, what allowed things to escalate?
Nzinga, I had you on mute.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah. I hope everyone sort of got, and I hope people follow Mia Mingus. I believe their pronouns are possibly they, and I may be naming their pronouns wrong. So if they watch this video, please forgive me. But Mia Mingus has been a leader in this movement, and they are an amazing person to follow. So we're going to go back to our slides.
All right, give me 1 sec.
Thank you so much.
Great. Can you see him here?
Yes, thank you. Perfect. So I wanted to round robin this question for folks in the room. So we're running out of time just a little bit, but I hope this was a great introduction for you. There's so much more to explore, but I wanted to open it up to people. When we think about conflict and harm, how do you feel is the best way for you to address it? Whether that's an apology, whether that's bringing in a mediator, what works best for you when we think about resolving conflict and harm? This could be micro, this could be macro. What do we think? And I'll model. Sometimes I find a mediator in a situation to be helpful. And sometimes just always assessing, like understanding the situation fully. So having the person or persons speak their piece and fully seeing my piece as well. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes. I know this is slides away, but what are your solutions in your life that you find that are effective in resolving conflict and harm? And maybe that's something to think about. Do you believe, a TJ process could be right for you? I totally believe in TJ processes. I think they're really, really important. And especially when we're thinking about our liberation and our freedom. Yeah. So I see from Vera first addressing her. Exactly. I think that's very, very important.
And for me, I'll chime in while we're waiting. So confrontational whatsoever. I can't stand it. It makes me very uncomfortable. Most of the time I bring in somebody who can be that mediator to help make sure that I'm listening and that the other person is listening, and making sure that, we're both addressing what we need to. So kind of like you, Nzinga, I think that having somebody there to mediate really works for me.
Definitely. Ditto. Awesome. I'm gonna give it another minute because I know that we're a little bit delayed and we have a couple minutes before we end our time today. Ask some questions in the conversation, right? So I am hearing this. Is this correct, right? Did I understand that correctly? Yeah. Very, very important. Very, very important. figuring out our common ground where we can build from. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There definitely is like comfort in coming from a space where we both can understand. I see your perspective, you see my perspective. Let's find a way to work together. So definitely ditto to that, Samantha. I'm gonna give it probably like 1 more minute, and then we could just open it up to questions before we end today. So I'm gonna give it another minute.
That sounds great. Nzinga, maybe pose the question one more time for our viewers. I see lots of people on. Maybe they're feeling shy or contemplating. So let's pose that again.
I'm gonna type it in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Allow time to cool down before talking. Very good. Very good.
Yes, absolutely.
Journaling. Yeah. Come through self-reflection. Yeah, for sure. There's nothing like seeing the words and seeing, your emotions being written down, because writing things down makes things real. So I absolutely love that, Dee. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Okay, so we have only a couple minutes left of this session. I just wanted to move it to Q&A. If you have questions for me, if you have questions about SisterLove, if you have questions about any of the things that I talked about, we can just have a quick conversation in the chat that you're more than welcome to ask. Again, I'm the manager of youth programs at SisterLove, so I do youth programming. I do sexual health education and reproductive justice, health and policy work. So I'm a little bit everywhere, and it's really, really exciting to do this work. It's really, really exciting to be working with PADV. I think RJ and the issues that PADV is trying to dismantle definitely connect and definitely intertwine and align. So this is a really, really exciting thing. Any self-care tips for youth? That's a good question. I know for me, meditation is really, really great. Depending on your living situation, I live by myself. So I am very pro candle, but I know people living with caregivers may not be open to lighting of candles. But now that this fall season is here, I just feel like it definitely just calms your space. So I love lighting candles. I love, getting new candles, especially I've been trying to get some from Black-owned candle shops. Also, I think picking up new skills is something that's really, really important too. So if you want to learn DIY, if you want to learn how to, decorate glasses, change the pavement, change your tires, right? All those DIY things on YouTube, there's something empowering about learning a new skill. So that's something that I've been doing myself, is just my skill building outside of my work and learning new things, right? And then, the normal things that we sort of typically think of self-care. So talking with friends, movies, spa days, whatever that you call that. Whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. But I would definitely say, I can't emphasize that skill building one, because there's nothing like learning a new skill, and then you'll always will have that skill. So,
I think that's
yeah.
great points. And Samantha, that was an awesome question for me. Am I getting feedback here?
Oh, okay. So for me, I taught myself how to cook, and learning that was very therapeutic, but also eating is so therapeutic. So treating yourself to something that's not processed, having a piece of fruit, that can go such a long way, truly. But Nzinga, I'm so sad that our time here is up. You have been incredible. We have learned so much, and this is just the beginning. Guys, if you have any more questions for Nzinga, please email the teenscene@padv.org email, and we can connect you so that you can continue this conversation and get those wonderful resources. With that, I do want to do a little plug. At the end of Teen Summit today, we will be sending out a survey link. It is so important for our community to give us feedback so we can make sure that we are giving you the content and the resources that you need. It is a win-win. It takes less than 1 minute to fill out, and you will be entered to win a $100 Visa gift card. So please stick around for the end. We have an amazing closer that will be starting at 1:20. Again, if you have any more questions for Nzinga, please email us at teenscene@padv.org. And it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for all of this content. It's really, really important, and we appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to working with you all again. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
All right, signing off. See you all soon.